Welcome back to the CoC 201 training series. This module will focus on CoC structure, specifically the structure of your CoC board, as well as the RABs and committees. So the Eastern PA CoC board structure, the board is made up of no less than 13 and no more than 18 members who are known as directors, who are collectively known as the board of directors. Each of the 5 RABs appoints 2 members to serve on the board of the CoC. And the remaining 8 board members include a representative from the collaborative applicant, which is DCD, a representative from DHS, up to 5 homeless or formerly homeless individuals, 1 from each RAB, and 1 at-large member. And the homeless or formerly homeless individuals and the at-large members are elected by majority vote of the board. In addition, the board members are serving staggered 3-year terms, and members may serve up to 3 terms consecutively. So 3-3-year terms. And if no other nominations are received for an open board seat, then the individual can be reelected if interested. And all board members run for a full 3-year period, but if a person is elected mid-term, so for example, a seat is vacant and they come in mid-term, they will be considered an interim board member. And the board meets monthly. The board has 5 officers. The officers include the president, the vice president, the second vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. And the board officers are elected by a majority of the board members. Officers serve 2-year terms per position commencing July 1st and may not exceed 2 consecutive terms as an officer. However, a board member can move into another officer position after serving 2 consecutive terms. So someone could serve, for example, as the secretary, complete their 2 consecutive terms, and then move into another position, such as the vice president. The expectations of your board members is that they're providing the overall direction and leadership for the CoC to fulfill its mission to effectively address homelessness. Board members are expected to prepare for and regularly attend board meetings, CoC membership meetings, and local RAB meetings, to serve on at least 1 committee, to suggest agenda items for the board and committees, bringing up significant policy matters that need to be addressed. And also a key role of all boards, including the CoC board, is really understanding the CoC's finances, the financial documents, and having the oversight of the CoC finances. Board members are expected to really serve the CoC as a whole rather than special interest groups. So even if a board member represents, for example, a special interest group, maybe the board representative represents a certain homeless provider subpopulation or represents DHS. Really, the board members are all making decisions that are in the best interest of the CoC overall, rather than for their local region or organization. Board members have a responsibility to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict of interest. This is outlined for in HUD's CoC rules, but basically board members should not be making financial decisions that impact their own organization, that may benefit their own organization, for example. So when board members come on, they complete a conflict of interest disclosure statement. And if new conflicts come up, they're also disclosing those as well. And then the board members also are providing advice and guidance to the collaborative applicant and the consultants as appropriate and offering support. Really, all this revolves around the board's oversight role. So in terms of your RABs, your Regional Homeless Advisory Board, the RAB chairs are expected to lead the RAB's efforts to basically operationalize the CoC policies and really lead efforts in their community to address and end homelessness. The chairs ensure that the RAB is fulfilling their duties. So those include having a minimum of 4 meetings per year, engaging local stakeholders as partners in the CoC, ensuring a fair representation from different sectors, electing representatives for the CoC board and volunteering for committees, providing input on the design and implementation of the CoC's strategic plan, providing input for how to prioritize needs within the CoC and within their region, conducting and coordinating the unsheltered point-in-time counts, identifying and sharing best practices, and encouraging HMIS participation. So if you have agencies in your region who aren't participating in HMIS, trying to bring new partners into that. The CoC is also made up of a number of committees. The executive committee is comprised of those five officers of the board, as well as DCED, the collaborative applicant. The executive committee is responsible for setting the agenda for the full CoC and CoC board meetings, assessing issues around non-compliance, assessing reports of conflict of interest, resolving board member conflicts, really having a high level of oversight over different issues that come up and then bringing those to the board. There's a data management and outcomes committee. The data committee is really focused on understanding the needs of people experiencing homelessness within the CoC, reviewing data to help inform what those needs are, reviewing the analysis of housing and services, conducting gaps analyses, providing data to the CoC, and making recommendations to the CoC about how to improve performance and using data to drive that. Other responsibilities include ensuring compliance with HMIS regulations and the CoC's HMIS governance charter. The funding committee is made up of non-conflicted members. So members who do not receive CoC funding are eligible to be on the funding committee. And there's 2 representatives from each RAB. So the RABs are really nominating folks for the funding committee. And the duties of the funding committee are coordinating the annual CoC project selection. So that includes the scoring and ranking of renewal projects, as well as new project selection. The funding committee oversees that entire process. And then also developing a reallocation strategy and then bringing those recommendations to the board. If the funding committee identifies that maybe there needs to be a shift in how things are funded to help fill gaps, that would be a role that they could play. The Governance and Policy Committee is responsible for a lot of the logistics around kind of maintaining the board and ensuring the CoC is meeting its responsibilities from HUD. So for example, filling open seats on the board, those at-large or homeless, formerly homeless positions, reviewing and updating the governance charter, developing and updating MOUs with the collaborative applicant, HMIS, and the coordinated entry lead agency, and ensuring the board is following all the appropriate governance procedures, which are spelled out in the charter. So how is the board filling vacancies? How are you orienting new board members? Things like that. The Veterans Committee is really driving the community planning around addressing veterans homelessness. The Veterans Committee reviews the veterans by name master list, so all the veterans who are experiencing homelessness, and coordinates around more effectively serving veterans, conducts case conferencing, and really is driving, again, the strategy in the CoC related to addressing veteran homelessness. The Coordinated Entry Committee is charged with planning around implementing the coordinated entry system. So that includes budgeting, policies and procedures, selecting partners, training and oversight, and helping the coordinated entry system evolve as new needs arise. Those are all things that the Coordinated Entry Committee is working on. So it's represented by members from each RAB, the folks who operate coordinated entry, so for example, the regional managers, the collaborative applicant, and the CoC's coordinated entry consultant. And the committee really seeks to get input from the folks who are working within the coordinated entry system, as well as receiving services through the coordinated entry system, to make sure that informs these updates and processes. And then there's ad hoc committees. The board may approve the appointment of additional committees or work groups as needed. The current ad hoc committees as of 2021 include the Written Standards Committee, which is charged with updating those written standards regularly, and then Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which is a new committee starting in 2021, which will be focused on enhancing equity in the CoC. So thank you for joining us for this module and reviewing the ins and outs of the CoC board and committee, and we'll see you back at the next one.